to another live. We go live pretty much every single day talking about the topics that you guys want to talk about. The first one is the value that brokerages are going to be providing. You know, a lot of people, let me just turn the actual, there we go, the temperature down on the iPhone, which is actually on my personal Facebook. But we're going to be talking about what, you know, let's just talk about the history of the brokerage. So the history of the brokerage, obviously back in the day, it was finding people property. You either knew the seller, you knew the buyer, and you'd connect the two. It was pretty straightforward. Or a buyer would come to you and say, hey, listen, this is the community I want to live. Here's the budget. This is what I want to pay. And really, the brokerage was the only one that you could work with as a buyer's agent and obviously as a seller's agent. So in other words, if you came to that brokerage, it was really about what listings do you have, okay? Because only that brokerage was the one that a little bit of co-broking, but then in the 90s and pretty much in the late 80s, they started switching around. They said, why don't we just start co-broking? So they started thinking about co-broking and they said, okay, if we start co-broking, we can actually add more value to the buyer, we can add more value to the seller. So then they started becoming a way more open with their listings. They started sharing listings. They started actually doing the co-broking. So this is what I recommend for any of the brokerages today is that it's a totally different model, okay? You know, I was at a small brokerage, Platinum Properties, then I was at a big brokerage, which is Halstead Property. And during that time, when I was actually at Platinum Properties, I said, okay, what's the value that the brokerage is providing? And that was my thinking in 2009, 2010, 2011. Then I moved on to Halstead and I said, you know, I'm at a massive brand. They're all over, you know, New York City, out west, Connecticut, New Jersey, and northern New Jersey. And I said, okay, this brokerage is obviously providing a lot more value to my buyers, my sellers, the marketing, and things like that. And then something shifted. I remember getting introduced to a buyer, and one of my clients said, hey, listen, my friend's looking to actually look for a place. They're looking on the Lower East Side. Can you help them out? I said, okay, perfect. So up until that point, most people came to us and they said, hey, listen, this is my budget. This is what I want to do, and this is my time frame. I say, okay, great. Let's go. Let's start looking at open houses. Let's find out what you want, and you start narrowing it down. It's known as a process of elimination instead of a process of selection. So process of elimination, you say, okay, actually, the doorman isn't necessary. I want a bigger place. Okay, you know what? I don't really mind if it's post-war. I'll do pre-war. And you start narrowing it down until you get to the core thing, which is a balcony in a pre-war elevator building. Doesn't need to be a doorman. Needs to be a condo. And then you know exactly what you want in the exact area. Super easy. Most people do it and they say process of selection. In other words, they look at 60 homes on the market and they say, which one is right for me? That's not right. That's not the, you know, they have multiple areas, multiple budgets. They have condo co-op, they have pre-war, post-war, they have doorman, non-doorman, elevator. They're all over the place and they never actually end up buying a place. That's a place, or that's an opportunity where an agent would actually be able to provide some value. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is, so I started looking around and I got on the call with this client, or actually the referral, and the referral said, hey, listen, you and I have been to a bunch of open houses, and I'm not finding what I want. I was like, really? You've been to a bunch of open houses? She said, yeah, you know, I've been looking for about a month and a half. I've been looking for a month and a half, and that was the first time it really clicked, and I said, oh, where are you getting the listing? She said, Street Easy. I said, wow, okay, great. And we got off the phone. I said, okay, let's meet on Sunday, and I'll compile the list, and then we'll really sit down. We ended up finding her a place. But at that time, I said, my value is not getting the listings. My value is not providing the listings. That's the old value. That's the old way of thinking, which is my value is to, yes, help discover their home, but it's not just giving them the listings. That's the basics of actually finding someone to actually find a home, which is, this is the area. That's easy. That's all online, okay? So when I actually thought about that, I said, if they're going to Street Easy, and Halstead Property is providing me with some value, which is, say, you know, some marketing. You know, they talked about storefront. They talked about that they're a global brand and everything else. You know, they're advertising, their branding and everything like that, their pitch package. And I started going into these pitches and I started saying to myself, they're actually not hiring Halstead. They're hiring me. This buyer was not looking at me to get them the listings. That buyer was looking at me to actually help them find the home. So the value between the two, as a seller side or as a buy side, actually came down to one core reason, which is, who are you? What is the value you're bringing? So then the reverse is true, which is, what is the brokerage providing the agent, and then what is the brokerage providing the client? And then before it was, what's the brokerage providing the client to the, or I'm sorry, what's the brokerage providing the what's the brokerage providing the broker to the client. Now it's actually what's the brokerage providing the client and what's the brokerage providing the actual broker in the brokerage. And it's two different business plans, because if you keep it as the same business plan, you're literally just going like this. And then most brokerages don't want to go like this, because that means they're giving value directly to the client and directly to the agent. And then the agent says, why don't I just leave the brokerage and provide the exact same value to the client? That's exactly what I did, which is the internet's online, okay? And I'm going to tell you right now, I know that, Town Residential, they went under. Obviously you're talking about Keller Williams. What's his name? CEO or the manager of the office was actually on The Real Deal talking about they're letting go people and, they hire too quickly and things like that. Obviously I did that as well. But one of the things that you have to think about as a client looking at a brokerage is, what are they going to do for me? And I'm going to come out on Monday with what is the brokerage doing for the actual agents. I'm going to talk about today, or actually the three things that the brokerage needs to provide the client. Number one is information. Not information, interpretation of information. It's very important, because the old saying is true. There's tons of information. People are starving for wisdom. So in other words, you take the information, here's the market report. What are you going to do with that market report? In other words, here's the data. How do I actually apply that data to my listing, to my buyers, to my sellers? And that's the job, that's the role of the agent, but it's also the role of the brokerage. The brokerage needs to provide relevant data on, okay, if you're looking for a painter, if you're looking for a contractor, this is it. If you're looking for a person to take care of your place and you're away, you need someone to clean it, you need someone to maybe babysit your dog or something like that. Those are relevant pieces of information. Obviously the market report, yes, but for that ongoing content, everything is content. Everything, that's why I'm going live. I'm going live and saying, this is what's necessary in the marketplace for agents, brokerage, clients. It doesn't really matter. It's just that people are starving for that interpretation of the information. So number one is content, relevant content that is not about how great your brokerage is. It's not about the market. It's literally taking the number one questions that buyers, sellers, renters, landlords, developers, everyone has, and literally carteling that into relevant articles. So a seller would be the 5 things to get your home prepared. For a buyer, the 5 things to get ready before you actually buy a house. For a developer, how to look for the best pieces of property if you're new to New York City, or a renter or a landlord or things like that. And you literally just go down and you subset the buyers, the sellers, the landlords, developers, everything else, and then you subset all the categories. And that's essentially what we're going to be doing, which is this one. Hot topic is essentially just for all the people that are out there and they're saying, okay, what's all the information I need going into buying? What's all the information I need to go into selling? Okay, you know what? I know the brokerage that does that best. And that's how they brand themselves. Number one, video is king, which is number 2. There's not a lot of brokerages out there that are actually doing video, okay? Social media. That's number 3, is there's not a lot of brokerages that are doing it properly. I'm not even doing it properly. It's one of those things that you kind of go out there, you have your personal brand, you have the business brand, and that's how most of the brokerages are actually doing it. They're saying, okay, what's the relevant content? The easiest way to get the relevant content is looking at the marketplace and saying, okay, what do they care? What do they care about? Okay, so that's 1, 2, and 3, which is content. And number 2 is you have to make it convenient for the agent, okay? So making it convenient for the agent so the agent actually spends more time belly to belly with the customer. So in other words, you have to break down the process, okay? Breaking down the process is before the sale, during the sale, and after the sale. Before the sale, you have to ensure that they're pre-qualified, have everyone ready. During the sale, you have to have someone compiling the board application, which the agent doesn't have to do. Maybe, yes, they have to review it, but during that compilation and typing it and writing it up and things like that, have people do that for you. And then after the sale, the follow-up. The agent, yes, they're servicing another business, but someone else has to follow up and get that marketing and get that information out to the customer, the clients, the past clients, and everything like that. So for a brokerage to actually succeed in today's world, and to be honest, we're going to see major disruptions in the coming, say, 4 or 5 months. 4 or 5 years. 4 or 5 years, you're literally going to be looking at 2 things. Number 1 is teams, and number 2 is you're looking at very customized brokerage that are not storefronts. I remember, going in and people are saying we're a storefront. Nobody walked through the storefront. Nobody cares about the storefront. Everyone in New York City that's looking for a New York City property goes to Street Easy. Fact. okay? Whether they like it or not, you have to go with the facts, and that's the fact. Two, I looked at people that were, so your actual website as well as a brokerage needs to have information on there, because all the listings are on Street Easy. People are starving for that information. Number three is it has to be convenient for the customer. They want to save time. They want you to do everything as a broker. And as a buyer, expect your agent to do everything. That's why you're hiring them. That's why they're getting the commission. That's why they're worth it. And then before you actually hire them, you have to go in and say, okay, are we going to be in a relationship for 3 months? Yes. What do I want in that relationship? If it's a buyer or seller or landlord renter, it doesn't matter. You have to ask the relevant questions for those people, okay? That is as important as everything. So I hope today's hot topic was a little bit more, it was more, not instrumental, but it's more along the lines of what are you providing the client and what are you providing the broker, because those are two separate things. The broker is the services to make sure they're belly to belly with the customer, and then for the client, you have to provide the information that's valuable to them in the actual, with the actual questions that they're asking, because there's a lot of brokers that produce information that they're not even asking for that question. They don't even care about it. You know, they're talking about small things when they're talking about renovating, how to find the right contractor, how to make sure that you're renovating correctly, how to make sure that your design is properly composed of. And I can tell you right now, you know who's really doing a good job of that? Is Street Easy, because they understand it. Their blog is incredible. Their blog has a design area, it has market reports, it has everything that you need. So you have the listing section, you have the blogging section, and to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if they start hiring agents. You know, the agents just say, this is where we're going to be, this is what we're going to be doing, and they're going to be probably one of the top people doing it. Yeah, they have everything, you know, and they're going to be able to co-broke. So today's hot topic, leave your comments below of what you want me to talk about in the future. And of course, as always, subscribe to the video. We're going to be coming out with lives every single week, every single day, pretty much. Buyers, sellers, and obviously anything when it comes out for market reports. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about market reports. So have an awesome day.